I've spent nearly 30 years on this earth and never quite managed to win over the ladies. But for some inexplicable reason, kids seem to take an instant liking to me. Whether it's babies in strollers or toddlers being guided by their parents, they all gaze at me with an intensity that's hard to ignore. Some even reach out with hopeful little arms as if asking to be picked up. I remember one time, while I was crouched on the sidewalk tying my shoelaces, a curious little boy came up and offered me a balloon. My college years were aimless, and as I faced the reality of job hunting, I realized I didn't have a clear career passion. The only thing I seemed to have going for me was this inexplicable connection with kids. Though I wasn't particularly fond of children, I saw it as a potential opportunity and decided to pursue a career in childcare. I spent 3 years working as an assistant in a daycare, earned my childcare certification, and eventually moved to a different center. That's when I discovered something about myself. I am definitely not a morning person. Handling energetic kids early in the day was draining, so I sought out a daycare with afternoon shifts. 6 months ago, I found one that operates in the evenings, and it's been a great fit. My hours are from 2 p.m. to 11 p.m., and I've settled into a routine that works well for me. Good evening, I greeted cheerfully, clad in my uniform, an apron adorned with a bear. Good evening, Catherine's mom, I said, addressing her as I always do. Her response was a cold, emotionless stare. I had slipped up. She didn't like being referred to by her daughter's name. Catherine, her 4-year-old, is in our care 3 times a week, and she had come to pick her up after her shift. Many assume that parents who use evening care work in nightlife, but in reality, they have diverse professions. She's a doctor, working part-time at a nearby clinic. I've heard she's been divorced for a few years and is now a single mother. Good evening, Mary, I quickly corrected myself and went to wake Catherine, who was still asleep. My heart was pounding. I felt like I was on the edge of a panic attack. To be honest, I had a bit of a crush on Catherine's mom, Mary. Her pale skin, minimal makeup, and her serene yet slightly stern demeanor captivated me. It's a mystery why, but I found myself looking forward to those brief moments when we exchanged a few words or I updated her on Catherine's day. I knew it was just a fleeting crush, the kind a plain guy like me, nearing 30 and not exactly popular with women, might have. That day, I ended up with an upset stomach, probably from some late-night ice cream or maybe a chill. My stomach has always been sensitive, so I decided to get it checked out at the nearby clinic. As I was filling out the form at reception, it hit me. Today was the day Mary worked at the clinic. I was both excited and anxious at the thought of being treated by her. Do I mention my stomach issues? I could feel sweat forming on my forehead in my panic. I glanced at the staff schedule on the wall, and sure enough, Mary's name was among the 3 doctors listed. With a 33.3% chance of being seen by her, that isn't a 300 batting average considered pretty good. Does that mean my odds of seeing her are slim? What was I even thinking? It was just a 1 in 3 chance. Trying to calm my racing heart, I took a deep breath. John. I was called into the examination room. And of course, Mary was waiting for me. I recognized her immediately, but something was different. She wore thin silver glasses, which she didn't have on when she picked up Catherine. Her usual subtle makeup was nearly absent, and the white coat she wore, well, it was actually light pink, suited her perfectly. How are you? I asked with a polite smile, trying to make a good impression. Mary didn't react, focusing solely on the form I filled out. She asked a few routine questions while glancing at her computer and performed the usual checks. Throughout the appointment, she was all business. According to her, my stomach troubles were probably a one-time issue. She ordered a blood test for confirmation and prescribed some medication. I arrived at the daycare 2 hours late. As soon as I walked in, Catherine ran up and hugged me. What's up, Catherine? I asked, trying to comfort her. A female coworker then mentioned that Catherine had been unusually fussy while I was away. She must really like me, I thought. That evening, when I greeted Mary at the daycare entrance to hand over Catherine, she asked, "Good evening. How are you feeling?" By the next day, my stomach issues were resolved, but ever since, I had been feeling off. I didn't have a fever or loss of appetite, but thinking about her concern made my stomach churn and gave me palpitations for days. That night, after playing with the kids and preparing snacks, Catherine, looking grumpy, clung to me. "What's wrong, Catherine?" I asked. "I don't like that person. I really don't," she repeated over and over. When Mary came to pick up Catherine, I reported the incident. "I'm not sure who she's talking about, but Catherine seemed quite troubled. I said hesitantly. Mary's expression darkened as she replied, I see. I was left confused. About 10 days later, just past 7 o'clock p.m., the phone in my office rang. It wasn't a day I had Catherine in my care. I had just finished putting the kids to bed and was taking a break. I answered the phone, but there was only silence on the other end. What's this? A prank call, I muttered, annoyed, and hung up. The phone rang again almost immediately. Who is this? What do you want? I asked, my patience wearing thin. A familiar voice replied, Are you John? It was Catherine's voice, unmistakably. What's wrong? What happened? I asked, my concern growing. Through her tears, Catherine sobbed, Mommy needs help. It's all because of me. Her distress was palpable, and I felt a sinking feeling in my stomach. Where are you? I asked urgently. At home, she replied, her voice trembling. I confirmed that Catherine was indeed at home. I'm on my way, I said, checking the address on our registration forms before rushing out. Catherine's place was only 2 subway stops away, so I decided to take the subway, thinking it would be faster than hailing a cab. I sprinted to the nearest station, boarded the train, and found myself surrounded by the evening rush hour crowd. 2 high school girls nearby giggled as they looked at me. I glanced down to see that I was still wearing my bear-themed apron. I quickly removed it, clutching it under my arm, and used the address to navigate to Catherine's apartment building. Fortunately, another resident was entering as I arrived, allowing me to slip through the security door. I rang the doorbell repeatedly and called out to Catherine. The door finally opened, and Catherine threw herself into my arms. I stepped into the apartment. Mary, it's me, John, from the daycare. Are you okay? I called out, moving further into the hallway. I heard Mary's faint voice, over here. I can't open the door. Please help. Following the sound, I saw that a tall metal shelf had fallen at a 45-degree angle, blocking the bathroom door. It's all right, I said, trying to lift the shelf. It was firmly wedged and wouldn't budge. I put my back into it, grunting with effort. Please help me out, Mary's voice pleaded desperately. With my back aching, I adjusted my stance and pushed with all my strength. After a few more grunts, the shelf shifted just enough to free the bathroom door. The metal shelf, being surprisingly light, was easily propped against the wall. As the bathroom door swung open, the force of it struck my back. Ouch! I exclaimed, rubbing the sore spot. I'm so sorry, Mary said, her voice filled with genuine remorse. After I called the daycare to let them know I'd be staying for the evening, Mary mentioned, Catherine's bedtime is approaching. As we sat in the living room sipping coffee, I offered to help put Catherine to bed. Mary led me to the bedroom, where I saw a child's pillow on the double bed alongside an adult-sized one. My heart raced, pounding loudly in my chest. I felt a flush of nerves, almost as if I might get a nosebleed. After putting Catherine to bed and returning to the living room, Mary began to explain the situation. She works 3 days a week at a clinic near the daycare and also at another hospital where she has been employed for a long time. The hospital's director, who had been her mentor, recently proposed a match for her. The suitor was a distant relative of the director. They had been on several dinner dates, and it felt like a bell tolling loudly in my head. He's not a bad guy, Mary said, but I'm just not sure if I want to date him. She hesitated for 2 reasons. The first was Catherine. When Mary introduced Catherine to the suitor, Catherine took an instant dislike to him. It finally clicked for me. I realized that when Catherine had previously said, I don't like that man, I hate him, she was talking about him. They had planned to meet him again on her next day off. However, when Mary told Catherine about it, Catherine became moody. That's when she went to the bathroom, and a sulking Catherine, in a fit of temper, knocked over the steel shelf. The shelf was new and empty, so even Catherine could easily topple it. But how did you manage to call for help in that situation? I asked, impressed. Mary explained that she had set up an instant connection for emergencies. She had Catherine call for help and mentioned sincerely, "Thank you," expressing her gratitude. As I walked along the road in front of the apartment complex after leaving, I suddenly wondered about the second reason Mary had mentioned for her hesitation. That evening, the time came to say goodbye to Mary and Catherine. Summoning my courage, I asked Mary, "Is it about the job at the local clinic?" "I have decided to quit," she replied with a distant tone, a hint of irritation in her voice. She explained matter-of-factly that she would be working full-time at another hospital she had been affiliated with, which also had a daycare facility. Catherine would be cared for there full-time, and Mary decided to proceed with the matchmaking. As I walked to the daycare's gate to see them off, Catherine kept looking back and waving at me, while Mary didn't look back at all, seeming indifferent. I felt a lump in my throat. A few days later, I received a call from the daycare's office. It was Mary. She wanted me to come to her place next Thursday at 6:00 p.m. I told her I had work and couldn't make it. "Please make it work. I'll be waiting," she said, and hung up before I could respond. I was puzzled. Why would she want to see me? I had no idea. I managed to convince the principal to give me the day off. Restless and unable to eat, I left my home a little after 4:00 p.m. The nearest station to Mary's apartment was less than 30 minutes away, so I arrived over an hour early. I wandered around the shopping district and returned to her apartment building several times, trying to pass the time before my scheduled visit. Finally, I rang the doorbell at her building's entrance. "Hi, we've been waiting for you. Come on in," Mary said, though her voice lacked warmth. When she greeted me, her face was tense with anxiety. I stepped inside, and Catherine came running from the back, clinging to my leg with a joyful, "Long time no see, John." Mary led me to the dining area, where a lavish spread was laid out: salad, fried chicken, French fries, pizza, and a whole birthday cake. I was taken aback by the unexpected setup. "Today is my birthday, remember? My 31st, Mary said. I thought she could have just mentioned it from the start. Catherine had insisted on inviting me. "Oh, wasn't Catherine drawing a birthday present for her mom the other day?" I asked. Catherine playfully slapped me, indicating I shouldn't have mentioned it. "The drawing was meant to be a surprise." "You knew about today, didn't you?" Mary asked. "Well, I knew it was coming up, but didn't know the exact date." Her eyes widened, and her face quickly turned red. "Oh my, how embarrassing," she exclaimed, covering her face with both hands. At that moment, Catherine brought over the drawing she had made as a present. Mary and I exchanged knowing glances upon seeing it. Afterward, the three of us sat down and enjoyed the birthday dinner together. During dinner, Mary shared something deeply personal that I hadn't expected and probably won't hear again. She had mistakenly thought that even after Catherine told me it was her birthday, I had ignored it. She felt uncomfortable being referred to as just Catherine's mom, believing that it made her seem like nothing more than a daycare worker to me. To be honest, she had always put in extra effort to look her best when picking up Catherine, knowing I would be there. The reason she was absent on Catherine's last day at the daycare was because the thought of not seeing me anymore was too painful. She admitted that she had always had feelings for me. "What about the matchmaking?" I asked. "I turned it down," she explained. Her decision to work full-time at the clinic run by the doctor who proposed the matchmaking was purely coincidental. She mentioned that he was strictly professional and didn't mix personal matters with work. That was just me jumping to conclusions. The head doctor had said that if that was the case, there was nothing he could do. "What do you mean, if that's the case?" The main reason she hesitated about the matchmaking was Catherine, but there was another reason she hadn't mentioned before. She had someone she was interested in now. Mary then unfolded the birthday present drawing from Catherine, revealing a portrait of herself. What caught her eye was a tiny figure beside her, a man in an apron with a teddy bear emblem on the chest. My faint admiration had become a reality. After dating Mary for a while, I once casually remarked, "But a doctor and just a preschool teacher like me." She instantly flared up in anger. "What do you mean, Jess? I hate when you belittle yourself like that. I really hate it." Time has flown by, and now Catherine, who will be starting elementary school next year, calls me Dad. How did you find today's story? Please hit like and subscribe to the channel. Your support motivates us to keep creating. We look forward to your comments and hope to see you in the next video.